So what we're going to be talking about today is trying to simplify the process of recognizing narcissistic abuse as narcissistic abuse, because it's very easy to make a subject more complicated. It's very easy to add on new ideas, new diagnostic criteria, new ways of analyzing narcissistic behavior. But I don't think that's very useful for the targets of narcissistic abuse. Simplicity and principle-based advice is going to give somebody who's in trouble the best weaponry and the best practical, applicable tactics to recognize a threat and go, that is a threat, and then how to deal with it. So that's why I think simplicity is needed in this space. We have to try and simplify things down. So you want to be able to recognize narcissistic abuse via a criteria that is simple. And then you want to be able to set yourself up to leave narcissistic abuse via a criteria that is simple. Here's one of the vulnerabilities that you face. Here's one of the threats in the environment that you face, which is because of complexity and because of the nature of the trauma, if you as a target or victim, however you like to frame it, of narcissistic abuse, the nature of the abuse itself encourages you to look outside. So what's happening to you, your subjective experience is something outside of me is causing this, which it is to a degree. So because something outside of me is causing this, my better understanding of the something outside of me will allow me to resolve the issue. Fairly logical conclusion. Except with narcissistic abuse, it really doesn't work like that. With narcissistic abuse, the problem is that it externalizes what is called a locus of control. And my apologies to those of you for whom English is not your first language. The locus of control concept is a concept from psychology. When a person has an internalized locus of control, it's like a spectrum from internal to external. People who are more over here with an internal locus of control tend to feel like they're in control of their lives. And if something needs changing, they can do it. The people with a more external locus of control tend to think that they're just bobbing along in a storm and everything is happening to them. An externalized locus of control can be an indication of long-term trauma. So if you were raised in a very chaotic, very catastrophic childhood environment, the locus of control tends to push along the way to being external. What we need here is that Mortal Kombat I can hear?
No.
What is it?
Smackheads.
Oh, it's Smackheads.
Yeah.
So listen, folks, we're here, Liverpool City Centre. We've got a little bit of a problem at the moment. Because some Smackheads congregate outside, don't they?
Yes.
God bless them. You can't hear it on the mic. That's good. So what can happen across time is a person can end up feeling, especially if they have experienced abuse and they've experienced trauma and they're dealing with PTSD, their locus of control becomes very, very external. And they can end up becoming dependent on drugs to cope with that, like my friends outside. Most of them will have experienced fairly awful levels of childhood trauma growing up. The locus of control becomes externalized, and so they start looking for external solutions to an internal pain. When we're studying narcissistic abuse, because of the abuse across time, even if you started with an internal locus of control, you're at the receiving end of abuse. And let's just remember, for narcissistically abusive relationships to do damage to you, it's not just a question of a narcissistically abusive person being abusive to you one time, and then you go, well, that person's not very nice. I don't think I'm going to work with them, or I don't think I'll get into a relationship with them, and I'm going to walk away from this, which I've witnessed. I've witnessed, let's say, for want of a better term, neurotypical people interacting with somebody that I've been in some kind, either a business relationship or romantic relationship with, and neurotypical people will just turn to me and go, "What's this? I'm not dealing with this. I'm sorry. You cannot bring that person around me again. And so it doesn't impact their locus of control. Why would it? But if the relationship is high stakes, you've gambled. You've gambled on the relationship and it's high stakes. So if it's one of your parents, the high stake is you want, at an emotional, psychological, and biological level, you want validation from your mother and your father. If it's a romantic partner and you've gone all in and you think this is the love of your life and you've invested emotion, your psychology, your time, finances, resources to build a life with that person, that's high stakes. High stakes here means if I lose the gamble, if I lose the relationship, I've lost a lot and it's really going to hurt, which is something else to remember as you're approaching this subject. Parts of you really don't want to lose. They don't want to lose this relationship because it's high stakes and the loss certainly is going to be painful. So you have somebody who's abusing you and across time, your sense of your life's control, the locus of control, moves from internal to external, even if it was internal to begin with. The problem is outside, so you start looking for external solutions. Why is that bad? Because if I'm looking at an external problem and I'm going, you're the cause of my pain, which is a misapprehension. It's a failure at the analytic level. So you have your observation, this relationship is abusive. You have your orientation, your decision, and your action. It's called an OODA loop, OODA, observation, orientation, decision, action. At the observation level, your perceptions are dysregulated because your emotions are dysregulated. Your orientation to the problem is now dysregulated. Your orientation to the problem, you don't know where the enemy is. You don't know what weaponry they're carrying. You don't even really know what their objectives are, but you think you do. This is a problem because any plans you make, they're not being made in an appropriate orientation to the actual problem that you face. In this scenario, the map that you're operating is not the territory. The map that you're using doesn't accurately reflect the territory. So, person comes along, they're abusive to you. You observe that they're abusive to you and you go, oh, this is strange. What's going on here? Orientation. I think they have this problem that's called narcissistic personality disorder or psychopathy or borderline or whatever it is. How would I fix that? Well, in nearly every other area of human life and human endeavor, when there is a problem, you study the problem in order to come up with a solution. But not here. Not here. It's not going to help. If we complexify rather than simplify, complexify is not a word, is it?
It is now.
It is now. If you make it more complicated, it's going to get worse. So what can happen, and I've lived this, so I know what it's like. You say to yourself, I need to know specifically what her problem is. Is it what type of narcissism is it? What subtype of narcissism? Is it comorbid borderline? Is it a result of childhood trauma? What type of childhood trauma? What are the potential solutions and so on and so forth? And you end up falling through multiple layers of different echo chambers. And it can go on for months, which is bad. It can go on for years, which is a catastrophe. And you don't leave. Because you've set up something in your head that says, I can't leave the relationship and give up on this unless I know exactly what's wrong with them and that it definitely can't be fixed. That's not true. That's a belief that you're holding that's not true. So what I'm going to suggest to you today is that we're going to look at a few beliefs that prevent you from diagnosing effectively what the problem is in the situation that you're in your relationship, and a few beliefs that stop you from doing what is best for you. So let's look at it like this. Belief number one, I need to know exactly what's wrong with them in order to know whether I have the right to give up on this relationship and move on. False. That's not true. knowing what is wrong with them, let me say something confrontational, is quite frankly none of your fucking business. It's none of your business. Don't let them convince you that it is, because they want you to believe that it is, because then they can keep you working for them. Then they can keep you trying. They can keep you in the hamster wheel of effort, more time, more love, more compassion, more kindness, and everything's going to be okay. No, it's not. It's not going to be okay. Let's start with a solution, a simple solution. If I say to you, it is not ever your responsibility to resolve another adult human being's childhood trauma for them. Let me say it again and try and have an instinctive, emotion, body-based response to the statement. I'll say it to you like I was in the room with you. It is never your responsibility to resolve another adult human being's childhood trauma for them. It's never your responsibility. What's your visceral response to that? Is it, yeah, that's right. That's true. That's fine. Okay. It's quite an internalized locus of control, that. That means that there are boundaries in place. That means that you're going, no, I have my stuff to deal with, and you're an adult and I'm an adult, and we're the same adult being in the same adult environment, living in the same world. We're in the same matrix. When I do wrong and I don't plan properly, there's negative consequences. When you do wrong and you don't plan properly, there's negative consequences. You don't bear my burdens and I don't bear your burdens. So if you said yes quickly and easily, there's a very good chance that you're going to recognize narcissistic abuse as narcissistic abuse early and that you're going to leave. It'll still hurt because if it's a romantic relationship, presumably you love them, you're attached to them, so you want it to work. And then there's going to be a grieving for the relationship that was lost. If it was a family relationship, of course, you want that relationship to work. You want to have a good relationship with your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, whoever it is. But staying in a state of hope is not going to help. And staying in a state of hope that is fueled by a belief that says it is my responsibility to resolve somebody else's childhood trauma. And if I just knew the correct psychiatric diagnosis, everything would be okay. And then I could leave with a clear conscience. It doesn't work like that. And you're never going to get the correct psychiatric diagnosis. So previously I would have said to you, well, take them to a clinician, have them submit to clinical testing, and then maybe we'll get an idea. Well, what do we know happens in the real world? We know psychiatrists are not infallible. The tests are not infallible. People lie. And besides all of that, there is a fairly major polemic that's been going on since at least the year 2000. So that's 24 years within psychiatry, within psychotherapy, about what narcissistic personality disorder is and isn't. That's why you see the DSM being updated. That's why you see the DSM being changed. It's not a disease in the way that like you can define a bacteria or you can define a virus or you can define a genetic mutation. It's just not like that. These are concepts, they're constructs. And in a certain sense, they're voted by groups of qualified, educated people, presumably in good faith. They're voted in and out of existence. So even if you were a billionaire, you probably still couldn't really get the answers you're looking for. So let me give you a solution. That's a simpler solution. You can ask yourself, let me finish the last thought and then I'll give you that solution. If your response to the statement that I made was, no, it is my responsibility, or your mind starts going, I don't know, Richard, I don't think that's quite right. I think there are times when actually I am responsible for resolving the childhood trauma of other people. You've slid along the scale of locus of control to external, and you've now got, I don't mean to be insulting, but quite poor boundaries. You're approaching this problem in a poorly boundaried way. You're not responsible for other people's childhood trauma. You can't be. You could argue that if there was a professional relationship between a therapist and a client, that the therapist becomes responsible for resolving the client's childhood trauma. But then when you actually speak to psychotherapists and qualified clinicians, they will tell you actually no. that therapist, let's say her name is Sarah, she's not taking on the responsibility of 30 adults' childhood trauma to resolve herself. She's not a saint. She's not a witch. She's not capable of doing that. She can guide the client to resolve it for themselves. And this is where I think, like, when people are talking psychology and they're using psychiatric terms, but they've never seen the inside of academia. They don't really understand how peer-reviewed psychological research is published or why it's published and why some things aren't. They don't understand the replication crisis across all the sciences. That's a huge replication crisis in psychology. And then we sort of reward ourselves through YouTube videos and Instagram videos and posts that we've read on Reddit, sort of a qualification. And I'm not being patronizing. I'm not massively qualified in psychology. Most of you know, I have a BSc in psychology. So in terms of, I'm not massively credentialed. I don't have many credentials in psychology. But when it comes to this subject, what I can see happening is people look at the problem externally, they acquire expertise, thinking that's going to be the thing that's going to help them, and it's the thing that sinks them. You'd be better off knowing less. You'd be better off not knowing, because if you've not been put through the rigors of an academic process and you don't understand that all of these things are social constructs that are trying to look like biological diseases because of the history of psychology, which it has a history. It's humans built it. There was politics with a small p. There's power games. There's a drive for status. There's a drive for money. There's a drive for fame. They have egos too. They can be bitter, they can be petty, they can mislead their clients in the name of selling a book or selling a seminar or whatever. You have to understand all of that so that you don't grasp some new subcategory or definition of the next mental health issue and go, yes, I've got it. So open your hand. What have you got? You've got a model. You've got a model that somebody created. Now, that doesn't mean it's useless. Everything in the world that we use, like all the technology in the world we use, is based on models, but it is just a model. It's just a model. It could be very good. It could be very high functioning. It could be massively effective. But then if the models that psychology was producing and the models of therapy that psychology was producing were brilliant, why are we in the middle of a mental health crisis where people seem to be getting sicker and sicker and sicker in the wealthiest countries in the world? So maybe these models aren't that great. All of this to try and say to you, don't cling to analysis. Nothing magical is going to happen when you go, oh, I finally understand. Yes, he was a factor 2 psychopath with somatic NPD, comorbid borderline, zibbity babbity boobity boo, and now I have the magical spell that's going to unlock all of the problems. It won't. But if you believe that it does or will, you're screwed. You must let go of that belief. This is not like, oh, you can keep it, but it's going to be tough. You have to let go of that belief. If you believe that you're responsible for resolving somebody else's childhood trauma, even the qualified clinicians and professionals, as I've just said, they're not. So who is? We're all adults. You know who's responsible for my childhood trauma? Me. You know who's responsible for making my life work? Me. I can hire therapists. I have friends. There's people who care about me and they want me to do well, but it's not their responsibility, is it? So when you hear it in the second person like that, you might think, no, that's right. It's not their responsibility. So then why is it different for you? Why would it be different for you? If you're thinking, no, it is my responsibility, then that's another belief that you have to let go of. A better yardstick, a better solution to know whether you're in a relationship that is so rigidly abusive that you can say, hey, I've had enough and I'm giving up. And I'm going to go and I'm going to grieve for this relationship. And then I'm going to go and form another relationship that's healthier, is the following. Is the way the person is interacting with you, is it loving? You can answer that question. You might not know whether they're factor 2 psychopathy, comorbid borderline with somatic narcissism, but you know what loving is. You know what kind is. Are they consistently, not intermittently, consistently kind and loving towards you, regardless of the context, regardless of their mood, regardless of whether they've taken drugs or they've drunk alcohol? Consistent kindness, consistent respect for you as a separate individual. Do you feel manipulated in the relationship? Lying, gaslighting, sulking, ambient abuse, the coercion of your behavior through pulling faces, changes of a tone of voice, telling you it's fine to engage in this behavior, it doesn't bother me. And then when you go to engage in that behavior, starting a fight or punishing you or withdrawing from you or stonewalling you, that's highly manipulative behavior. You can recognize that, right? A consistent pattern of infringing on your boundaries, a consistent pattern of disrespecting your sovereignty and agency as a separate human being, a strong sense that this person is trying to fuse with you and merge with you so that they can make your goals their goals. You got to get your ideas around love and romance right. Love and romance is often portrayed as a kind of merging with another human being. It really mustn't be that. If you're going to fuse and merge with another person, you're going to lose a lot of your authentic self. And that's not good. Across the years, across the decades, this builds a tremendous amount of frustration, a tremendous amount of resentment. And how can you have personal sovereignty and agency when you cease to be a self? So these things are simple. These are some of the ideas and the beliefs that I think we all need to get into our head in order to recognize a narcissistically abusive relationship. It's just manipulative. It's unkind. This person's lying to me. They're pushing me in directions that I don't want to go. They're coercing me. Coercion removes consent. You cannot consent, by the way, unless you are given the full information about who that person is. Is the person giving you the full information about who they are, or have you stumbled across important and pertinent information about them across time? Then I would argue you didn't consent. If you're not consenting, consent is critical. It's absolutely critical. If you're not consenting, if you don't have all the full information, as far as I'm concerned, you've not consented to this relationship. You were pushed, bullied, provoked, teased, manipulated into it under false pretenses. And if you feel, and if that resonates with you, and you're like, oh my God, I think that's what's happened to me, you can leave. You don't need any more permission than that to say, I'm not living like this and I will leave. There is loss. There is loss here and you will need to grieve for what was lost, but this is how you get your life back. So keep it simple. You don't have to worry about the psychiatric diagnosis. Just know if that's a nice person or not. Are they respecting your boundaries? Are they bullying you? Are they manipulating you? Are they sulking to get their way? It doesn't matter whether they have a personality disorder. That's crap. That's not a good way to run an adult-to-adult relationship. And you should have that boundary. You should have that standard, that value. I value my sanity. I value my peace. If you're not going to speak to me in an adult way, I'm not your mummy. I'm not your daddy. I'm not here to fix you. You speak to me like an adult or we don't speak. You can leave or I will leave. And that's it. With time it takes to undo the old negative beliefs and instill the new positive beliefs that leave you in a position of much greater power to be able to go, I can see what this person's doing. I don't like it, and I'm not going to engage with this. You don't need all of the psychiatric terms to do that. You must also, just to reiterate before I conclude, and then I'll take questions, you must also get it through your head, one way or another, it is not your responsibility to resolve another human being's childhood trauma ever, ever. So yes, even if you're a paid coach, therapist, or psychiatrist, resolve that person's childhood trauma for them. How absurd is that? What a ridiculous point of view. First of all, you can't. Second of all, who the hell do you think you are? You can barely resolve your own stuff. Come home, come back to yourself, resolve your own childhood trauma, resolve all of these issues around boundaries and your own self-worth. And a lot of these extraneous, external issues will disappear. I'll take questions, try and make them one sentence long and end in a question mark. Why are you laughing, Jacob? What's funny about that simple adult to adult polite request?
Would you like to see them on the TV? Or
go on, let's see them on the telly. Right, let's see them on the telly, eh? Lovely. I can't see that. I'm blind. Bloody hell. Oh, thank you. You're very kind. I really need glasses now to overcome my vanity and wear glasses.
How's that?
Ah, yes. It's very good. Thank you, young man. You're very kind. Thank you for bringing it closer. Yeah, so if I see a question mark, that's probably where my eye will be drawn to. Rather than a series of statements. Stop laughing. Naughty, Jacob. Naughty.
Let me scroll up a little bit and see if we can see any. What if they are threatening and let me get my microphone. What if they are threatening and scary that if you leave, they will do terrible things?
That's beyond the scope of a coach in recovery from narcissistic abuse. You need the police. I mean, that's psychopathic abuse at that point. What they're doing, it's literally illegal to do that. Okay. In every country in the world. If you say, I'm going to do terrible and scary things to you if you leave me, that is illegal. And the police and the judges of the land do not like it.
Yeah, there's a few. What is a simple sentence you can say to them to rip apart from them?
Again, it's you're believing in magic still. Remember I said before that I think it's the nature of the trauma. It infantilizes us because you can't escape. And then people start looking for magical solutions. And I think in the narcissism space, psychiatric definitions have become like magical spells where if, was it Rapunzel? Whether you had to say the right name and then which childhood story? Is it Rapunzel? Or there's a story.
They all blend into one.
Yeah. Well, somebody in the chat, you tell me, there's a story and you have to know the name of the goblin so that the child's life is saved. I think it's in our DNA to believe these things. Like the ancient Egyptian pharaohs, we never knew their real names. They had a public-facing name because they were terrified that if you knew their real name, somebody would lay a curse on them. The psychiatric definitions are not just in the narcissism spaces, everywhere in social media. People fetishize psychology now and fetishize trauma. And it's as if I just knew the right psychiatric definition, it would unlock the door and everything would be okay, like a sort of a fantasy Lord of the Rings style scenario. It won't. There's no sentence I can say to you that will, I don't know what phrase you use, rip them away from you. And why? What? I mean, I'd love to know what sentences you think would kind of do that. There's nothing you can just say to somebody with zero intent, zero boundaries, zero self-worth that's going to make a bit of difference. Believe me, I sat in relationships like this saying all kinds of things and saying like therapeutic things and trying to educate them on psychology. And I said all the words, but there was no intent behind what I was doing. Nothing, because they're not interested. You're applying your vision of reality to them. And you must learn to stop doing that. They don't see the world the way you do. They are other. They really are other. I mean, this is I personally believe narcissistic personality disorder should also be understood as a kind of ongoing low-level psychosis that's self-induced. So no, there's no magic sentence. Do not vape.
Rapunzel, someone said there.
Is it Rapunzel?
Rumpelstiltskin.
Rumpelstiltskin. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Well, there's quite a lot of come in now. Do you want me to work from the top down?
Yeah. Let's have a go.
Right. Let's have a little go here. Is getting back after 3 years crazy with an ex-narcissist that treats girls.
Is getting back after 3 years crazy? With ex-narc, treats girl. Does he treat the girls with sweeties? What's he doing?
This is a good one. You once spoke about codependent fuel, which I thought was spot on. Could you expand a little on that?
I will do. So, Paul, I think you've been auto-corrected. This sentence doesn't make sense. Is getting back after 3 years crazy? With ex-narcissist, treats girl will be like narc. Treats has been autocorrected for something else. Look, if you think, when you come to me, so again, we're back into adult to adult communication here. You're coming to me and you're saying, Richard, in my experience as an adult man, I think my ex-girlfriend had narcissistic personality disorder. That means no matter what, every single opportunity for communication or contact with me, she's going to abuse me. She's going to confuse me. She's going to erode my boundaries, erode my value, and coerce me into doing what she wants me to do, which isn't going to be nice for me. And then you're saying, should I get back with her? No, you should. What? No, of course not. Of course not. You're telling me that she has nothing but evil intent for you. Should you get back with her? How about no? No, you shouldn't.
How about frickin' no?
How about frickin' no?
Yeah, there was that one from, where's it gone?
Yes, John Anderson. You once spoke about codependent fuel, which I thought was spot on. Could you expand on that a little on that? Mm-hmm. I think I said codependent supply as a counterpoint to narcissistic supply. I also spoke about borderline supply. So I think with codependency, so narcissistic supply is an excessive need for admiration and praise beyond any sort of justifiable boundary. Codependent supply is the validation, I noticed this in myself, that a codependent gets from being of good service and from being self-sacrificing and from obeying a tyrannical, self-serving partner. There's a satiation in that. There's a supply in that. I wouldn't go so far as to say it leads to codependent elation, because the narcissist is elated when they get good supply. Let's say codependent gets their supply, they go into codependent satiation. My life has value. I have value for now. Tomorrow you'll need to do something else. Good question. Thank you.
Tips for co-parenting with an narc.
The videos that I did last week in here, they'll probably be ready sort of early next week, won't they?
Tomorrow and the next day.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Liverpool Podcast Studios, folks, very, very, very efficient, very speedy. So there'll be a video out either tomorrow or the next day, because I shot a bunch of different videos where I go deeper into talking about the broader element of co-parenting is that anybody who's stuck in a situation with a narcissist, because not everybody has the luxury of just going no contact. Sometimes we have to be in contact with a narcissist for business reasons, shared custody, you're going through a divorce, it's a family member, whatever. And I think the goal, rather than me giving you strategies for co-parenting, we can go upstream of that and say, wouldn't it be nice? This is something I developed for myself, by the way, because I was forced into contact with somebody who's extremely abusive, but for business reasons, I had to maintain contact with them. Wouldn't it be nice if you reduced the significance of the narcissistic abuser to the point where you didn't get hyperadrenalized every time they send an email, they send a text, or you have a missed call from them, because your body and your brain is going, oh God, what now? What fresh hell is this? What new torture is about to befall me? So, and you can do that. You can reduce the emotional and physiological load being in contact with that person has. And I developed a course on it, which I misnamed. I then didn't do a good job of marketing it, and consequently about 100 people bought it. But it is a good course. It's called Break Narcissistic Possession. If you go on the website and you go to courses, Break Narcissistic Possession, I don't know what it costs. It's not an expensive course. It's easy to consume. And the whole point of the course is to just say, look, if you're stuck in contact with somebody, let's take their significance and reduce it down so that you can think clearly. Because right now you can't think clearly. So you're like, what do I say? Like, how do I deal with this person? But if we can reduce their significance, you go back to your executive function will come back online and you'll be able to make clear and good decisions in your interaction with them. But effectively, all the pain and all the confusion you're suffering is because they're still very significant. And I don't mean that in layman's terms. Let's all pretend for a second we are neurobiologists. I have a black shirt on, like Andrew Huberman. So we'll pretend it's neurological. They become less neurologically significant. You want it at the level of your body that the trigger of that person does not elicit the response of, oh my God, what's high drama? What's going to happen next? Hypervigilance. You become adrenalized and you're instantly stressed out before you've even engaged in the conversation. What if that went down to, oh, here we go. And you had a bit of a laugh about it. And then you just found a way to communicate with them without getting sucked into their games, without getting sucked into the drama and being able to get on with your life. So I think that's the way to go. If you don't want to get the course, you could sit with a therapist and do this. If you don't want to get the course, you don't want to sit with a therapist, I would say you can figure it out for yourself, but you have to go step by step to saying, okay, I need to make it very clear, me to me, that I'm making my life about peace, and you need to reinforce that to yourself every day. My life is peaceful. I like peace. I like sanity. I don't have time for crazy people. I'm going to have a good sense of humor about this. I'm going to be good natured about this, but I'm here for my children. My children are modeling me every single microsecond I'm with them. If they see me being reactive and moody and cranky, they're going to model that. This is the amazing power parents have, you all have over your children. I worked with horrible adolescent human beings for 5 years, and I learned this. It's truer the younger they are, but even at 15, 16, they model what you do. If they have any healthy role model, they'll model, don't say healthy role model. If they have any effective role model, effective according to their objectives, then they will model what you do and they have no choice. They copy you and they have no choice. It's an instinct. It's an instinct. I, around my kids, they're not my kids, my sister's kids, my nephews, if they see me go and train in the garden, they want to be with me. It's so cute. It's so funny. I have videos of them doing it. They'll pretend to do push-ups. They pretend to do bear crawls. They pretend to do kettlebell swings with their toys because they can't help that. Well, like little animals, like little monkeys, which is the little ones are looking at the big ones going, oh, I guess that's cool. They'll do what you do. The way that you're emotionally processing, they're unconsciously receiving that and downloading it too. So if you are of good humor, you can face up to this stress in a calm way. You stick to your values. I'm living a calm, decent, happy life. You're the one who's addicted to drama. Yes, when I got with you, you indoctrinated me and I became somewhat addicted to this drama as well. But that's you. That's not me. That's you. And that's where we start setting boundaries and going, this is me. This is who I am. That's who you are. Off you pop. Poppletons, Offletons.
Right. I mean, there's loads of questions. I don't know if you want to pick any out that you.
Yeah, I'll squint at the screen.
You could also get the chat on your phone if you prefer to look at it.
Oh, yeah. I tell you what, Jacob, I'm glad I've got you here for the technical advice, kiddie. Tarantila is here moderating. That's very good of you. Thank you very much for helping out with the moderation. I appreciate that.
Lots of Rumpelstiltskins.
Lots of, everybody's like, Rumpelstiltskin, for the love of God. I'll do it off the big screen.
Yeah. I'll scroll back up to where there were questions.
Thank you. It was very good of you, Jacob.
Let me make sure no one gets missed.
Do you like this format, folks? I feel like a newscaster. Look, there's me book. A Cult of One is over here. You can get this from Jeff Bezos' slave house today. Let's make Jeff richer. Poor old Jeffers, eh?
Do you want me to pick any that are like personal situation questions or more explaining things further questions?
I'll try anything. Let's enter the realm of chaos and see what comes forth.
Okay. Any tips to recover from 10 years of abuse? Came to know a few months back I was going through narcissistic abuse for over 11 years. Any tips, please?
Well, my name is Richard Grannon, and this is my YouTube channel, which is just tips on overcoming narcissistic abuse. It's got like 700,000 subscribers and literally thousands of hours of tips. But seriously, so number one, go to the website. I wrote a book. It's free. I ask for your email, and then once a week I'll send out a thing that's usually just advertising what Alive is. I don't hammer people with emails. It's the ebook is over on richardgrannon.com. It's Overcoming Narcissistic Abuse. Read that. It'll take you 2 hours. It's a very good starting point. Then I'm going to ask you to do something that's going to take a little bit more effort. It's also free, but it's not free on your time. You go to Fortress Mental Health Protection on YouTube, and you go through the tutorials, download the audios, download the PDFs, and give yourself, you've gone through 11 years of torture. There's nothing I can do that's magical that's going to change it inside of a couple of weeks. Commit to, we have riots in Liverpool, and they set fireworks off during I just heard a firework going off. Broadcasting live during the Liverpool riots. Go through that course, and it's going to teach you how to reduce emotional flashbacks. So after narcissistic abuse that's gone on for 11 years, you will be feeling very strong emotions, and there will be a lot of confusion inside of your mind. It's called cognitive dissonance. Go through that course that reduces the intensity and frequency of your emotional flashbacks as a matter of urgency, because it means it gives you your body and your brain back. Right now, it's colonized, it's hijacked, and life for you right now is probably very, very stressful. It's called Fortress Mental Health Protection. It's on YouTube. If you just put into the YouTube search bar, Grannon, which is my name, and Fortress, it will come up. It's all free. Please work on that for at least 2 months, every day, 20 minutes a day, 2 months. You will feel better. You will feel more regulated. And then think about seeing a qualified clinician who specializes in recovery from narcissistic abuse. You can see them on Zoom. You can see them on Skype. It's still going to work for you, but do get some help with this. It's quite hard to overcome. Once you've done all that and you've spoken to a therapist, you can start looking at the videos that I've got. The videos that I've released in the since April, where I'm talking about reintegration of fractured parts, this will give you the most return on your investment for time. You'll get better. I got better at teaching people how to get better. So the more recent stuff is a little bit faster, and I believe more effective. And that's what I recommend that you do, sir or madam. I can't remember. It's Neha.
Neha, yeah.
I think madam. I hope that was helpful.
Sammy says, "You're the best. How can I get my locus of control back? It feels like a kite so far, the wrong way, but outside of me. Where can I find a witch who can make me let go of my 34-year sadistic narcissist?"
Yeah, these things, they take time. I recommend, there's the course, which is Narcissistic Matrix Reintegration, which has another free course in it, which helps you to overcome the CPTSD that comes with narcissistic abuse, and consider finding a mental health professional that can help you to work through it. If you find somebody, a counselor or a therapist, and they contact us directly, we will just add them to the course, and you can go through the course together. If you did 1 hour a week with them for 5 or 6 weeks, it would really help. And you can get, if you use the counseling directory for some people, like the money is a barrier, but there are counselors who are available who understand the subject. Well, I mean, if you get really stuck, I have a guy you can message helpdesk@spartanlifecoach.info. And I think he's £40 an hour, which is like $50 an hour. But it's good to get help. It's good to speak to another person about this type of thing. So that would be my recommendation for getting your locus of control back into an internal state.
Monica says how to recognize what trauma is used by narcissists to manipulate us. How to heal it.
How to heal it. I can teach you how to heal it and heal it good. The type of trauma that they're using is to keep you confused. They will frequently push you outside of what you consider to be normal. So that a lot of their behavior is quite shocking. I don't know if you've noticed that. The behavior is shocking to keep you discombobulated. You think you're dealing with one thing, then you're dealing with another. They're very much a boundary pusher. And what they'll try to do is push your boundaries and get you to accept the new boundary as though it is normal. It's kind of like narcissistic, psychopathic type of behavior. They like to pervert people's vision of reality. They like to invert your morality so that good is bad and up is down after a period of time. That's the type of trauma you'll receive. And that's what makes recovery so traumatic, is the parts that we would usually rely on in a therapeutic context for you to make therapeutic progress have been damaged. And the therapist needs to understand that, which is why I say they have to specialize in they should have an understanding of narcissistic abuse. The therapeutic modalities that I like for narcissistic abuse recovery are transactional analysis and internal family systems, parts therapy.
Nice. Someone just put, of course, Jacob thinks this after.
Of course, Jacob thinks this after.
I don't know
It's
what
like a
that
stream
means.
of consciousness out there in the comment section. It's like reading a William S. Burroughs novel.
Yeah. Just looking for questions. Some of them I feel like don't make sense.
So a lot of them don't make sense.
No, some of them not.
Some of them. I'll try this one. I almost there and out of trauma bond, but he keeps arguing with me through a lawyer. I don't want to answer. Any experience with the bullying with lies through a lawyer? No. I've no experience of somebody trying to bully me with lies through a lawyer. It sounds like the type of thing that maybe a lawyer could advise you on in your state or in your country to teach you how to best deal with that. What flavour juice are you vaping? That's a very important question. It's very important that you don't vape. This one's called Fresh Menthol Mojito, and it's by Cristal, because I'm dead posh, me. I'm from the Wirral, lad. Posh. How are we doing for time? How long have we got left?
We're on 5:45.
Okie dokie.
About 15 minutes. Is this order for decrease in empathy correct?
Says Kieran. I love when people try and do it. They try and do it like trump cards or something. Like, can we have a stable, simple system for understanding this? Independent empath, codependent, sociopath, narcissist, psychopath. I don't know what an independent empath is. I don't think we use the term sociopath anymore. I think you should just say psychopath. I think the polemic over sociopath and psychopath was that it started in America and it ended in America. It's because clinicians were using them interchangeably. I think originally when we said sociopath, we meant that it was caused by trauma, but a psychopath was born, but then not everybody agreed on it. So just say psychopath. Empath is not a clinical, is non-clinical. Codependent is non-clinical. So I mean, and why would you want to know the decrease of empathy via, I suppose it's kind of interesting. But if you, I couldn't do it like that. The other thing is, you must understand with me, I'm very prejudiced against the overuse of the word empathy and the misuse of the word empathy. Strictly speaking, I am a bit of a pain in the arse when it comes to language and etymology. Empathy just means that you have simulated effectively another person's experience so that you can guess effectively what it is they might be thinking, feeling, and what they're about to do next. There's nothing warm implicit in empathy. So we don't need to say affective versus cognitive empathy. We don't need to say warm versus cold empathy. There's nothing warm implicit etymologically in empathy. People confuse it with sympathy because it sounds similar, and the Latin root is very, very similar, and compassion. So I'm not the person to be having discussions about empathy, because I'm like, well, of course you should be empathic to other human beings. To me, on a day-to-day basis, when you're being empathic, it means you tune into the other person, you let them speak, you look at them and you listen to them, and you try to figure out what it is that they're thinking and feeling. And if you have the resources to help them, then you help them. If you have the resources, that's it. I'm sorry I couldn't be more useful to you, Kieran, on that one, but at least I could guide you away from sociopath and empath.
Does narcissists often play the victim role and only focus on the negative, dark things in life, says Carmen.
Oh, can they hear you on a mic?
Yes.
Oh, they can. They very frequently play a victim role because it's advantageous. They'll play the victim role when it's advantageous for them to play the victim role. So if you have caught them in some wrongdoing, or if their tribe, their society has caught them in some wrongdoing, one of the infantile responses to being caught out is to pretend that you are the victim of what is happening, to garner people's sympathy, to garner their compassion, so that they won't punish you as harshly for the terrible things you've done. You know, you get people who do horrendous acts of violence, and then they'll go to court and they'll claim it was as a result of childhood trauma or some trauma that they experienced, and they really didn't know what they were doing, and so on and so forth. Because some psychopathic people know full well that the positive intent of the majority of human beings around them will win them over. And it becomes a tactic. If they're very negative and catastrophic, which some people with narcissistic personality disorder are, you should consider the possibility. There is, if you're interested in this, it doesn't matter. This is not a deciding factor in whether you split up with somebody or not. But there is something called negativistic narcissism, where the person just is very, very negative. But it's a strategy. It's a strategy to garner narcissistic supply and to control social interactions.
Julie says, I'm 47 and grieving the loss of my best friend due to her obsession with a man. She lost me due to setting boundaries. It hurts me so badly, and the guy doesn't love her. Tips?
Sorry, my entire arm started shaking there. A little bit of overtraining today, I think. She's obsessed with a man, and you set boundaries, and it hurts badly, and the guy doesn't love her. Julie, I think it's important in our lives to maintain perspective. We're all going to die one day. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. You're 47. I'm 46. You know, we don't have that much time on the planet. And one of the things that I've found useful to do is to remind myself of that. It's like, when I'm dead, I plan on remaining dead permanently. So I'll be dead for a much, 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 much longer time than I was alive. In the brief flittering flicker of a life that I have on this here planet, I must stay focused on what it is that I do want from my life, and to associate with the people that I do want to associate with. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like a perspective shift. Try and pull focus a little bit. What do you really want your life to be about? What is it that you want to create in your life? Who is it that you want to be associated with? This kind of experience is, I agree with you, it's painful, but typically painful experiences offer us an opportunity to learn. And through pain, there is typically growth.
Nice.
Oh, thank you, Jacob.
Can we have physical symptoms being around the narc, even if you haven't spoken in months and you are getting along presently?
Yes. So I'm not a doctor, but over the years, I've observed in myself physical health decline through contact with a narcissist. I started to get, for me, there was sleep pattern interruption, and I started to get allergic to different foods and different ingredients, which was very strange because I'd never been allergic before in my life. And I've had my clients and followers report an awful lot of autoimmune disorders that they think correlated with contact with the narcissistic abuse. You said even though you're not in contact with them and you're getting on with your life, you're still carrying an introject of them. It's very important when you really want to move on with your life that we deal with the internalized introject of the narcissistic abuser that we will carry. Because if you don't eradicate that and you don't eradicate what's called the shared fantasy space, there was a gentleman from Ghent who came up with that term in 1989. I forget his name now, but the shared fantasy space is a normal part of any healthy relationship. We have this shared fantasy that allows us to process and be in relationship with another human being. When the person is toxic, when they're abusive, that shared fantasy space is toxic and abusive, but it continues. The shared fantasy space continues unless you deliberately eradicate it. The introject, the internalized version of the abuser continues talking to you and continues influencing your decisions, even if they're dead. So these are things that we have to dig out. These are things that we have to approach directly and deal with so that we can get on with a normal life. The course I developed called Narcissistic Matrix Reintegration deals with these issues specifically and directly.
That's the same question. When a man talks disparagingly about his ex-partner, is that a red flag?
When a woman talks disparagingly, excuse me, sexual equality?
It's said
Are
that the
you
way
a sexist? Are you a misandrist?
it's said
so
that the
triggered.
way people talk about others is the way they will talk about you. I get this unease.
So in good faith, it is possible that if somebody's been through a really traumatic experience, whatever their sexuality is, whatever gender the person is that they were with, and they really haven't overcome it, a lot of people feel the pain and then they jump back into the dating pool, and that really is a terrible, terrible idea. A lot of people who are out there trying to date the pain away don't need a girlfriend. They don't need a boyfriend. What they need is a therapist. So I'm not saying don't do it, don't date, don't try and find new relationships. But everybody watching, because the gentleman in question won't be, just check in with yourself. Are you still hurting? Go to therapy. Deal with it before trying to date. So I would say my good faith response, my naive response would be sometimes people just really haven't gotten over what they've experienced, and they unwittingly and unknowingly, they just go on about it because they're in like a repetitious cycle. I'm not a dating coach for obvious reasons. But I would say it is very poor dating decorum to raise your ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend, ex-husband or ex-wife and speak disparagingly of them within the first month or two of seeing somebody. You would want to work through several layers of boundaries and trust first before, and I would only raise it if the person I was seeing was like, I really want to know what happened. And I'd be like, well, then, okay. But I wouldn't just sit there and be disparaging. I would explain, this is what happened. And this is what these are the reasons why I think this human being acted in this way. This is what I understand she experienced. And these are the responses that she had. And this is how she saw me. So even if you are going to say something that's a little bit negative, you can still be even-handed. You can still say, yes, this girl, yeah, she did, she lied, she cheated, but, and that's obviously, I don't accept that, but these are the reasons why I think she did that. So you can be even-handed. But generally speaking, you don't want to be talking about your exes when you're just dating with somebody. Do you do that, Jacob? Do you slag off your ex-girlfriends on dates? Nope. It's not smart. It really doesn't look good. It's kind of trashy thing.
Not slag off anybody, to be honest.
Don't slag off anyone.
Friends.
Nothing. No. Yeah, on dates, don't slag anyone off. There you go. That's Jacob's dating advice. Just don't slag anybody off.
I mean, there's been quite a lot since we've been scrolling.
How many people have we got watching?
Ooh.
I'm a man. I want the numbers.
Yes. 522.
522. Thank you.
568. It just changed.
Oh, it just changed just to please me. See? The view count is codependent to my needs. Yeah. It's very good of them.
2,365 views total.
Wowzers.
Come in and off.
Wowzers.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. There's a few more questions pinging in. No, I've scrolled right to the bottom.
Well, we've only got time for a few more questions, folks. So if you make them one sentence long, end in a question mark, then they'll probably get read out and done, etc. I can see one by Tyler M at the 3/4 way down the page bit. There's yep. Oh, yep. Take a little arrow down. There it is. Up. Yes, indeed.
Tahia.
What's her name? Talia.
I was looking for Tyler.
Yeah, I can't see. Does a sadistic narc ever mature enough to merit considering their request for more interacting? No. If you've decided that this is a sadistic narcissist and you have a reason to believe that they're sadistic, which means they enjoy to inflict pain on people, then you should have as little contact or preferably no contact with them. And don't make it possible for them to request interaction. Have kept father on effective behavior plan for 30 years to have a safe interaction zone. Yeah, try and avoid contact with these types of people. In my experience with my clients and my followers over the last 12 years, is people who tend towards codependency tend to overestimate their capacity for enduring narcissists and for handling narcissists. They tend to think that they're cleverer and safer than they are. Cleverer as in more tactical than the narcissist. And that it's not that bad, it's not that dangerous. But when you look at it from a more therapeutic point of view, you'll see that it's actually incredibly dangerous and incredibly damaging. You're just used to being damaged. And so you think, well, this is normal, but it's not normal. It's not normal.
Trying to scroll down. There we go.
Don't vape. It's terrible. Don't smoke at all. Especially not crack. Or you'll end up lingering outside of the Liverpool podcast studios arguing with your friends. Are you okay, Rich? Yes, thank you.
Are you sure?
Can I have a hug afterwards?
Of course.
Jacob will give me a cuddle later.
What about this one? Why do we experience more emotional flashbacks after exiting the narcissistic relationship than when in the relationship?
That's unusual, but not impossible. So I'm going to refer to Mark Vicente and what he taught me about cult psychology. So when you enter a cult, and a narcissistic relationship is a cult of one, you develop. It's not his idea. I think he took it from a cult psychologist. you develop a cult self. And within the cult, if the cult has like spiritual growth or therapeutic methodologies, those spiritual growth methods and those therapy methods work for the cult self. So you split yourself as the narcissist or the cult splits you at an unconscious level. You consent to this and you engage in self-splitting. So you carve a piece of yourself off for them. And it's possible, I don't know you, that what you've done in the relationship is you've created a more resilient false self to deal with their abusive false self that just dissociated from pain. The relationship has ended. You've stopped using your cult self, your narcissistic survival self, and now you're back to your authentic self, and you're thinking, wow, that really hurt, and I'm going through a lot of emotional dysregulation. That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head.
Right, well, that's time. We're at 6 o'clock.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you all very, very much for joining me today. Thank you so much for your time and for your attention. I hope that was useful. If you liked this format where we go live from the Liverpool Podcast Studios, please let me know in the comments. And I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Goodbye.